Hello. So today we're going to look at how Brazil became an independent country. First, we'll look at our Cornell notes from yesterday. Okay, so why is Brazil's Portuguese heritage so unique to South America? So every other nation has a Spanish heritage. Okay, only Brazil has a Portuguese heritage. Which Portuguese king? This was King John III. They acquired slaves when they couldn't do it. The Jesuits tried to convert the native people to Christianity, Catholicism, so that they didn't have to be slaves, and so their souls could be saved. Okay, here we have how did the Jesuits try to combat the slave traders? Oh, well, I kind of gave that one away, so I'll just skip it. Brazil's main export was sugar by the 1600s, and 1/3 of Brazil's population was slaves by 1820. All right, independent Brazil. Once again, I'm going to have you do this on your own today. Okay, so just pause the video there and pray this verse. Okay, so Napoleon Bonaparte. Let's learn more about him, okay? Because he's going to be important to today's lesson. Even though he didn't live in Brazil, he impacted the events which led to independence in Brazil. Who was he?
Hello, friends. I'm Napoleon Bonaparte, the French emperor from 1799 to 1814, as well as an indisputable genius in military skills. I was born in 1769 in Corsica, and as I was extremely good at mathematics, which by the way was my passion, I managed to get into a military school. In 1789,
And that's all for that. Let's watch this one.
tired of injustices, of the tyranny and absolute power both kings and aristocrats had. Thanks to the help of an important and sinister man of the revolution, Robespierre, I began to be a valuable militant, and shortly after I met Josephina, the most important woman of my life. In 1799, I became the chief of the whole of France, and this is when my glory started. I was very ambitious, I admit, and conquered many European countries, thus becoming the most powerful man in the world. But greed overreaches its.
So when Napoleon Bonaparte was taking over all these countries in Europe, he also invaded Portugal. As a result of that, the King of Portugal, who was King Pedro I, Dom Joao, when Portugal was invaded, he ran away from Portugal, and with his whole family, he moved to Brazil. So the King of Portugal moved to Brazil, and while he was there, he actually made it an independent kingdom, or not an independent kingdom. He made it a part of the kingdom instead of just being a colony. When he went back to Portugal, he made Brazil. He made his son Pedro I, who has an awesome hairdo. I think I'm going to grow that out. He made Pedro I the king of Brazil as he left. So his son liked being king. Then a few years later, he then wrote a letter to his son. He's like, yeah, you're not king anymore. I'm taking it back. So Brazil's going to be a part of just Portugal again. It'll be a colony again, not a kingdom. Well, the Brazilian people didn't want to be a colony again. And Pedro I did not want to be just a prince again. He wanted to stay a king. So when he got that information, he declared independence from Portugal. And from then on, Brazil became its own kingdom. Pedro I was important, but he was also a pretty cruel and tough leader. So eventually he was kind of forced out of power, and he was replaced by his son, not Pedro I again, but Pedro II. Pedro II was a very kind and benevolent man. He kind of worked to end slavery in Brazil. He led a lot of reforms. He brought about the first railroads in Brazil. And he ruled for a long time as well. until ultimately his kingdom would end. So the kingdom of Pedro II ended when basically slavery became illegal. And when slavery became illegal, a lot of the wealthy farmers got really mad and they led a rebellion because they wanted to have slaves because it made them not have to pay their workers. They led a rebellion. They overthrew the king and they started what's called the First Brazilian Republic. They tried to imitate the United States in setting up their country, which is why they have their flag used to look just like the United States flag. And they continued to basically elect leaders who would support them to have as profitable as a farm as possible. So the nickname for the presidents was coffee presidents because all the presidents were worried about was making sure the coffee farmers got enough money to make themselves happy. That republic fell apart in 1930. You're going to learn about this man who took over. He conquered the republic and started his own government. But with his rise to power, this man named Getulio Vargas, he was not a democratic leader. He wasn't into democracy. Instead, he became a dictator. And so from 1930 to 1985, the leaders of Brazil were dictators, military leaders, and oftentimes generals would march into the president's office and take over, and then the country would be ruled by generals for years instead of even any kind of leader. Just a military guy would lead the country. From 1985 to today, the country has been democratic. And just one interesting fact about how they do things differently. In Brazil, voting is mandatory. So it's kind of interesting. They require you to vote by law. So 253 is today's section. Read that as you complete your Cornell notes, and then do page 3 of the packet. And let's look at that. Oh, I don't want to sign back in. Looks like I gotta sign back in. Alright, well, let's do that. Sorry, you can skip ahead like 10 seconds. Alright, says we're in there. Go another 10 seconds. Alright, we're getting there. Just keep skipping. Keep skipping forward. Okay, true or false? This is simple. So you might have to find some of these details from the book, but just go ahead and you guys will be okay. Okay? All right. That's all for today. God bless you. Talk to you soon.